Welcome, innovators, business owners, entrepreneurs, technology experts, academia, government R&D communities, and other members of the North Carolina innovation ecosystem. This is Defense Technology Talks, hosted by the North Carolina Defense Technology Transition Office, or NC DefTech. In this podcast, we will showcase various technologies with local and national experts who aim to solve complex national security problems. In the coming weeks, we will highlight North Carolinians with potential to, or those that have positively contributed to enhancing the capabilities of our warfighters, law enforcement, and first responders. We will also feature government leaders in research and development who have helped shape the future in this domain. These podcasts are just one of the many free services provided by the North Carolina government to assist the North Carolina innovation ecosystem to thrive and provide solutions for our nation. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rob Robinson with Defense Technology Talks. If you can believe this is episode number 60 or 61. Like, this is crazy. We have done a lot of content this year for you, and we're bringing back some folks that were on the show before. We've got Michael and English from Cymantix, and I don't want to steal any of their thunder because they have gone out and done some tremendous things in support of government operations in the last year. They have been working very, very hard with their project, Patty. And I'm sure that they've got some updates and some changes. They've actually gone to the Ogden Accelerator, which is an interesting program, but I don't want to steal any of their thunder. So I will pass it over to you guys. Kind of tell us about your 2022, and we'll talk about what you guys are planning to do moving forward in 2023. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rob. We're so excited to be back. I feel like there's just like so much has happened. I think last time we talked, we were maybe about to go to the Ogden Accelerator out in Utah. That was such a great learning experience for us. We were able to not only just meet so many cool people that we're obviously still very much in contact with and in touch with even now, but it was huge for customer discovery for us and our product. We learned so much just about the workflows of various members of the Air Force, the real gaps and the real needs that they are facing in just the ability to, digitally transform into the next phase. And we really felt like we actually could add value to the workflow and to what the goals were, specifically at the Air Force, which was just really great. I don't know, Michael, do you want to talk a little bit more about your experience there, especially from an engineering point of view?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, E. So, Rob, thanks for having us on again. So I remember the second week of the Ogden Accelerator was an engineering and design sprint where we had a bunch of Air Force and Space Force personnel come into the Accelerator campus that were part of the Minuteman III transitions to the Sentinel program, so the modernization of their ground-based deterrent. And they were talking to us about all these technical problems and people dynamics with technology, or human and technology interaction problems. And it was essentially hours upon hours and days of just thinking through with them, how do we solve these problems? And of course, we can't solve them all, but they gave us these three very straightforward use cases. And one of the ones that we identified was this problem of searching across classification levels. So depending upon what I have access to, how do I search, retrieve, and interact with the most relevant, up-to-date sources of data that are related to the maintenance of those ground-based deterrents? And so I think more than anything, what they were doing was scouting, is trying to understand what is the landscape out there, who's doing what's the level of talent, where are they from, what are they up to, what are they going to do in the future. And I think that's what I got most out of the Ogden Accelerator. Like English said, we definitely got some customer discovery out of it, but also partnerships, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm sure. We gained a huge partnership and added a few more years to the life of our company from that. So
yeah, that's amazing. And again, you hit it right on the head. So I'm going to jump on this one because I harp about this all the time, and everybody that talks with me knows that my main point in everything that I do is trying to find the use case, because so often we have all these engineers and designers and entrepreneurs with solutions trying to find a problem. And that's great because sometimes those are one-off capabilities that may be able to satisfy something right away. But usually, if I have a solution that's created, I am trying to sell that solution to keep the longevity of my company going by being in a process that allows me to make those adjustments and retool what I have to be more supportive
than less. And I see that all the time. And that's one of the biggest points that I always bring up in my counselings with companies is like, hey, look, don't be a solution looking for a problem. Be a solution provider to multiple problems. And then that's how you create more opportunities for yourself. Another point that I'll jump on real quick that both of you guys mentioned was customer discovery. That is a big part of building a business. Like you have tens of thousands of marketing agencies looking out to create something that's attractive. Hey, I'm going to dangle this out here on the internet and hopefully somebody will come to me with a tailor-made problem that will help me provide a solution. And I think it goes both ways. You can do it in the marketing arena, but just like anything, there's only certain levels of expertise that come with each person that you hire on the team. So it's better to kind of get towards the core of the team's, bread and butter, or what you guys actually do versus like a quad chart or a single page takeaway. And I know that flies in the face of everything that we say at DevTech, like, hey, make sure you have your quad chart and your white paper, right? But it's that backup data that comes from somebody reading your quad chart or reading that 3-page white paper and going, oh, wow, I need this. Or, hey, is there some way that you can modify what you currently have to support a problem that I'm looking to solve? And then the last thing, again, is the networking piece. And I say this 1,000 times. I say it on every podcast that I do, is your network is your net worth, right? So the more people that you can connect with, the wider the aperture of opportunity becomes. So if you're like the type of person that doesn't, like, the hardest thing to do as a business development person until you get good at it is a cold call to somebody that might be able to help you, or you might be able to help them. But it's very, very uncomfortable until you get used to it. And so from that perspective, being able to go into an environment like the Ogden Accelerator where that communication isn't even forced, it's just, it happens because you guys are in this, basically a pressure cooker, you're pressure cooking talent, in a very short period of time. And the connections that you make there can fill some gaps. They may, create other opportunities, or, you might realize it's like, hey, I don't know if I can solve that guy's problem, but if he ever comes up on the net and says, hey, I need a solution, I know some folks that can help him. And so I think both of those are very, very important points of coming out of an experience like that. And, again, with the Air Force kind of taking on the mantle of support for the Space Force as well, there's a lot of work to be done, particularly in the digital twin and the design space that they're looking to have that may not be satisfied with the current tools that they got. But definitely looking forward to hearing more about the accelerator. Can you talk about the projects that you were working on outside of the Space Force stuff? Was there a particular project that was there that got you excited and said, yes, I want to do this, and I'm glad that we came?
Yeah, Rob, I can speak to that a little bit. I think that, just going off of exactly what you're saying around the element of networking and collaboration. I think one of the coolest things about the accelerator is that, like, we were one of 7 companies that were there. And almost like on the very first day, we were sitting actually next to our colleagues from Dare Ventures. And they operate in this space, and they're kind of like an implementer light type organization. And Emma, the founder of that organization, her suggestion after we were being presented with a lot of these use cases, a lot of these issues that the Air Force was having on the digital front, she was like, hey, let's create a collaborative solution, right? Because one of the reasons that we're all here is that we're not individually able to solve this holistic problem with one company, right? Like if one person or one entity could solve this continuum of an issue, it'd probably be solved by now. And so the real crux of it was that we actually came together, a few of the companies, to present kind of an end-to-end solution to the use cases that they were presenting us. One of them being the credentialing aspect, some of the other ones being more around data architecture, which again is not our sweet spot, but luckily someone else in the accelerator sort of was like, hey, I'm going to raise my hand and put our hat in the ring for the architecture problem. And then just being able to search, right, and retrieve information in a space that is secure, in a space that is easily accessible. And so I think to your point too, Rob, is that like one of the most meaningful components of what one of I think it was a contracting officer who was there, said this on the first day. He was like, look, my problem may not actually fit your solution. But if you help me solve my problem, like I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come to you because you offer not just the sort of shiny solution that your company has, but we're in this space, Michael and I have expertise, right? And we can offer that, and we can offer real collaborative input on how to solve a much larger, much more complex problem than any one entity can solve on its own. So I think that was the really exciting thing, is that these partnerships that formed, and even through that, we actually applied as a group for phase 2 SBIRs.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
We've actually been selected for some of them.
Yeah, that's great.
To solve the problem, to go at the work together collaboratively. So really exciting.
Yeah, that's really good. And what I would tell you is that's part of one of the things that I would tell people all the time. Trust me to solve your problem today, and then I can solve your problem in the future. And the reason why that is because, again, it's all about relationships. Everything that we do, whether it be in business, whether it be in the military, like one of the most important things that you do when you're on the ground, particularly in the last 20 years of Iraq or Afghanistan, it was make friends with the people that are on the ground. And the reason why you have to do that is because those relationships matter, because they're going to give you information that you might not normally get, or it's something that you're getting reports outside of the report, is basically the easiest way to say it. Like if I can have a conversation with you guys offline about a problem that works for me, then what that allows me to do is that allows me to say, okay, yeah, I'm going back to English and Michael because I know that they know what they're talking about. They have the skills. And oh, by the way, their Rolodex is big enough where we can all get some work. And I think one of the things that the accelerators do incredibly well is they demystify that whole partnership aspect of business. And I say that because so many people, like I've run into so many folks that are like, well, I'd rather be the 51% owner of nothing than, extend my hand to have somebody help me. And that's just foolish. I mean, like in today's society, everybody's interconnected. The Internet of Things and the Internet of Personalities does not allow you to operate on your own. So from a business perspective, finding those one or two, trusted agents that you can provide information to or partner with is very, very important to the overall scheme of what you guys are doing. But yeah, I'm really glad to have you guys back on. And I will say this again, just because Cymantix is one of those companies that kind of came out of nowhere, jumped on a coffee call. We did a couple of counseling calls, and the next thing you know, boom, 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 you're in the accelerator. Things are picking up for you. And from my perspective, and I don't even work with you guys, but I think that you guys have had a very successful 2022. And I'm sure that you guys are looking forward to 2023 and continuing to do the work with the government. And the other piece of it is, and it's funny because I will put this out there and I'll say it because I had a medical product come my way, and I actually looked for the actual reports in Patty and I found them, which is super, super cool because one of the things that people always talk about is oh, does this really work? And it's easy to see a demo because of course, hey, all demos work because it's a demo. But when I did it on my own without you guys in the room, I was able to find the information that I was looking for. And it was wow, it actually does work. So that's just another, that's actually another stamp of a ringing endorsement for your guys' talent. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a business thing. There's so many people that put out so much information. I've seen, several websites talking about how many SBIRs they've won, but I've been looking at the same number for 15 months. So it hasn't moved, and you're like, oh, wait a second. You won 300 million this year and last year, or did you just not update your website? So those are the things that they're subtle, but those are the nuanced information requirements that you need to be looking at as a consumer of whatever product it is to have the best opportunity to move forward. But I'm going to pause here for a second and let's talk about 2023. I know that you guys have some new projects. I'm hoping that they roll out a little bit more in the new year that we can talk about, because you guys are a very, very valuable asset to our innovation community. And, successful 2022 and a growing 2023 will be exciting to everybody in our audience, and it's exciting to me. So I'd like to hear more about what you guys are doing here in the future.
Oh, there's a lot to share. E, where should we start?
Oh, I don't know. So many good things. I will say that we were lucky enough to close out 2022, and I know we're, it's December 7th, but we have an amazing budding partnership with a company called BlueStack that is founded and run by Seth Harvey. And they have become an investor of ours as well as a collaborator on work and technology. And so that sort of is going to kick off really intensely in 2023. So that's one element that I know we're really excited about. But Michael, do you just want to talk about the different sort of products we have coming up? Because we'll give some teasers, some tastes of our different tools that we've got going on. Michael's been working very hard, as have all of our engineers.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to do that. So, and of course, Rob, we'll do demos of all this toward the end if you'd like, and if we have time. But so one of the things we learned in 2022 was how to process audio correctly, and not just processing the audio data, but processing that audio data for a human being to actually make sense of. And so that is really at the core of what we do at Cymantix. Everything, we've thought a lot about what do we do? What are we? So yeah, we build information retrieval capabilities and technologies, but is that what we are? Is that what we do? Well, no, we're trying to build tools that help people make sense of really messy data, bottom line. And I think that puts us in a risky place sometimes, because what a lot of entrepreneurs want to do is they want to have survivorship bias. Like, we're never going to fail. We're never going to die. That's a bias. And number two is that sunk cost fallacy where, and I've suffered from this as an engineer, is like, well, I've invested so much time and energy into this. So this is our product. This is what we do. This is who we are. You have to be willing to always reinvent yourself. And so that's another thing we learned in 2022 with our technology. And because of that, we decided to build a new platform two new platforms. One of them is called Shannon. And what Shannon is, we can demo that one day. Let's have a podcast on Shannon. But Shannon is a video meeting platform that we built from scratch because of all the problems we were facing with Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, which is we don't just want to meet virtually and talk and make sure that someone in that meeting is generating the meeting minutes or action items and then disseminating that throughout the team. Where's the tool that does that for us automatically? And step one of that is being really good at processing video and audio streams and then applying our analytical tools on top of that. And so what we did is built that platform and an internal API that connects it to Patty. So now you have an encrypted account in Patty and Shannon, one login. When you run your video meeting, that audio stream is directly sent. The waveforms are directly sent to Patty, where it's transcribed in real time. And then you have a record, a library, essentially a Patty library, where you can say, okay, in the last 6 meetings, in the last 6 podcasts, or whatever your team is using it for, what did we talk about? What are the themes, the topical themes, the clusters, how they're related? Are we on point? What are the action items for the next meeting? So for us, we built it internally. We didn't want to take notes anymore. We didn't want to disseminate via email or chat, like, hey, send me the notes. I'm going to send it to this guy or this person, whatever. We wanted all that automated. And so we built it for us. We've been using it for 6 months quietly without showing it to people, and it works. And so we got our first enterprise contract right at the end of 2022, which is with our partner, BlueStack. So they're going to be piloting it internally with their organization, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, that's impressive. And the reason why I say that is because, like, when you use the commercially available platforms, you're switching from platform to platform to platform, and there's always a security risk with that because there's no trust, right? Like, the zero trust environment is very, very important for cybersecurity, and particularly when you guys are talking about product development or intellectual property, the ability to keep it in-house, or at least within the servers that you guys want to use, is huge as far as information protection. And if there's a data leak, where it came from, you know what I mean? And so it's like, hey, and that's one of the things that, like, people don't understand why for so long, the US government didn't allow soldiers to use their own cell phones. And the reason why they didn't allow soldiers to use their own cell phones is because the user agreement on the government contracted phones allows them to exploit it if there's a data breach. Whereas your commercial cell phone, I have to have a warrant to do that, or you have to relinquish your phone for the investigation. So I think both of those are very, very important aspects of it. I think that's great that you can get a chat notes and the audio recorded. Let me tell you, like, working on podcasts, one of the most difficult things in the world is finding the right platform, because most of the platforms that are out there that allow you to record video and audio, you still have to do some kind of conversion. You still have to do some type of editing or whatever. So if you have a one-stop solution, you are probably going to cut into a market and tick a lot of people off. But that's what disruptive technology is for, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want disruptive technology, because disruptive technology, what it does is it makes current platforms evolve because they've been comfortable with what they are. Like, oh, we've been able to monetize this. Why should we change? And then that disruptive technology comes along and it's like, oh, wow, they can do it better than us. So now I have to figure out a way to compete. And being able to compete with a disruptive technology if I choose to do that. Or I can say, you know what, this is where we are and this is the hill I'm dying on, and your company may go away. Like some of them are, like some of them benefited from the pandemic. So like when you look at like Teams and Zooms and Google Meets and like those variety of communication devices, they all thrive because we were all forced to go virtual. But if it doesn't have like the right level of encryption, like how many Zoom meetings got busted in on, while people are having meetings, some random person pops in because they just started punching in meeting codes and meeting IDs, and next thing you know, somebody's in your room. It's happened before. There's been some crazy stuff that's happened on those platforms. So again, it's not a bad idea to build your own community. And I think that's very, very important for what you're doing. I like the idea of Shannon. Like it's that sounds super cool.
I dropped the link for Rob, you there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Rob, Michael's got the link for you in the chat. So do me a favor between now and the next time you have us on, go sign up for an email. This is all free right now. Because we're just trying to get as much user discovery and user feedback as possible. Go sign up for an email, and maybe you can record one of your podcasts on Shannon and see how the transcription feature works.
Well, I would also talk about that. That's one of the most difficult things of using any other, commercial AI product. It's only as good as the language processing abilities, right? So sometimes, like, you can use some of the other translation programs and you're like, oh, I didn't say that. Like, how did that come out that way? Because again, it doesn't, like, I can't program a Southern draw or Northwestern, you know what I mean? Or Boston accent into those types of systems. And the other piece of it is like, I'm assuming that, like, because yours is built the way that it is, it's a learning system as well. So it will probably get more refined over time, which is great because again, the more refinement that we can get out of products, the better. I can tell you right now that the podcast that I'm working on that talks about Army football, we are looking for a new platform. So
give it a shot.
Yeah, give it a shot. Give us your feedback.
I got a couple of things to add, Rob. So
yeah, go ahead.
So from the technical side and also the values, the core values that we have at Cymantix, we want to do everything intentionally. And so we're really good at processing audio, but we don't want to process your audio. Privacy and security is paramount here. And so one of the things we've done with the architecture is we can't read your data. Everything is encrypted. We don't have a decryption key. We can't see. We have plausible deniability with that. But then the challenge becomes, like to what you were speaking on, how do we overcome word error rate? So even a $1 trillion company like Google that's got arguably the best programmatic interfaces for translating languages or transcribing audio, it's arguably the best out there in the world. They've got a very high word error rate, especially for people that have accents. So the only way we can overcome that at Cymantix is if we have the proper mechanisms in place and do this very intentionally to do research on people that are using our platform, to do research on their data. But we don't have the proper mechanisms in place. So we, at the very beginning of the Shannon architecture, said, well, since we don't have the proper mechanism yet, encrypt everything and we can't read it, we can't use it until we figure out how to do that the right way. So sure, we could one day overcome that word error rate of transcribing the text accurately, but until we figure it out how to do that properly, we're just not going to do it. So it's this trade-off of the user may see some words that are transcribed that are wrong, but what they can guarantee is that we're not reading their data. So, there's these societal questions as well.
Yeah. And I think that's always going to be a question. And like, for me, one of my biggest problems, and I'll say this now, is just because, like, I've been looking for a non-smart television for years, right? Like, we have gotten to the point where, smart TVs are ubiquitous, and that's great, but that's also a data point. That's a data entry point into your personal network that somebody can jump on, and again, that's my EW guy hat on. Like, does anybody care what I'm watching on Netflix? No, but don't give somebody the opportunity to pivot into my system because I have all these smart devices that are screaming beacons in my house. And that's a completely different thing. But the fact that you guys are willing to secure people's data is huge, because again, like, data security is a problem. And when you look at, these major companies that, like, oh, oops, we just lost control of, 200,000 records. Well, 200,000 records, that doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of the population of the world. However, if those 200,000 records are in one city or in the Department of Defense or somewhere that those records need to be protected, then it becomes a huge problem. And so I think the fact that you guys are willing to do data security is huge. And I think what you guys are doing is amazing. And I look forward to jumping on the platform and kind of working my way around it, because again, like I'm always looking for an edge to make my editing easier. And so like being able to have, accurate data points and understand, who's talking, what they talked about. And those segments are important, like we can use those for, it's multi-purpose use of the same data. And so I can appreciate that. So what else you guys got? Because I know you got more than just one, platform to record podcasts.
Well, can I add one more thing, real quick?
Yes.
There's a big redesign, Rob, coming to Shannon at the end of the year.
Yeah.
First, second week of January, the redesign's being rolled out. So when you use Shannon today, you're going to say, what the hell is this, Mike? This is ugly. I don't want to use this. Give it a month, and I promise you're going to say, okay, the interface is much more pleasant now.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to customer discovery and feedback, right? So like this is a perfect example of what we talk about all the time. And there's a couple companies that I will champion, and I won't use them because this is your show. We can talk about it after. But there's some folks that like literally listen to their end users, and they made modifications in their engineering and development process. And so now their product is that much better because they had a 70% solution last year and they retooled it. And now it's like, they surpassed the 90% solution. They're probably in 100 or 110 because the unintended consequences of the redesign have had some pretty tremendous impacts. And those are the things that, you never plan for as a business person, whether it be in software design or anything else. Is catastrophic success or catastrophic failure. Catastrophic failure, that's pretty easy. Like, hey, if I lose everything, I just close the doors, shut the LLC, send a letter to the state, and like, yeah, it didn't work out. That's the easy part. But catastrophic success, when it's like, boom, all of a sudden people are saying, hey, I want to invest in you. I want to invest in your company. How do you continue to help me make money? And then it explodes where it's like, oh, I need to hire like 10 more engineers, or I need to hire a business development person, or I need to hire somebody else to help build this thing out. That's great, but it's also frightening because a lot of people don't prepare for that catastrophic success. Usually they're used to the trickle. I want a contract here or there, and maybe things will work out. But I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. I will look for that update, but I am going to jump on the platform today as well.
English, I feel like that's a good segue to what we learned in cyber and cyber fob.
Yeah, I think so. I think let me preface that too, Michael, by saying, Rob, one of the things we've really learned in 2022 is articulated really well, and a lot of what you just said is that it's customer first, with always trying to also make sure that we're steering towards our North Star, right? Like, we are an information retrieval company. We want to bring ease and delight and convenience and trust to you retrieving information in many, many spaces, right? Wherever the information you need exists. And we have always said that we are a human experience information retrieval company. We want the human experience to be priority. And so that's why this customer discovery journey and the sort of redesign of Shannon, and then the creation of CyberFob, which Michael's about to tell you about, is really us trying to both respond to that customer need and saying like, hey, this is a problem that I have, while also maintaining our trajectory towards that North Star of really making information retrieval like the easiest, most delightful, fun thing that you get to do during the day. So, Michael, go ahead with CyberFob, because this is
a very exciting moment for me, Rob, and English. Thank you for that intro on CyberFob. Rob, when we get offline, I'll show you the live demo like we did with Patty, and
okay,
we'll play with the tool together. But one of the things that we learned, like English said, listening to the customer, wasn't a customer. It was a close friend who works in energy. So offline, we'll talk about who that person is.
Yeah.
But this is an important person in cyber, in a security operations center at a large energy company, multinational, and former Intel person basically looking at Patty and saying, guys, I understand the audio work. That makes sense. This totally makes sense and intuitive. But for my work, it just doesn't make sense. And we had tried to fit a square peg in a round hole. Took Patty and we tried to adapt it to cyber threat intel work. So if I want to figure out, like, how do I go through all my incident response data? How do I filter through TTPs? How do I figure out what the advanced persistent threat group is up to? We said, oh, let's use Patty. And again, it's that sunk cost fallacy where we said, no, we built Patty for so long and we put so much money into it. We got to figure out how to modify Patty for this. That was the wrong move. And we decided, okay, let's build something from scratch, that cyber's not going anywhere, and cyber threat intel work is going to be more and more important. And like English said, if we specialize in information retrieval, sense making, and the user experience or human experience, let's build this the right way. And that required us to humble ourselves and learn everything from the beginning, bottom up. And that's where CyberFob was born. It's basically this tool that, we've heard a lot about open source intelligence, and that can mean a lot of things, open source imagery, all kinds of, even YouTube is probably a great source, social media, but this is specifically for open source cyber threat intel. So you've got hundreds of publishers, either paid or unpaid, that are writing up articles on, here's what this APT is doing. Here's their primary TTP. Here's their lateral movement. Here's how they're shifting across tactics over time, what they're doing regionally. Like, there's all these aspects to it. And so we tried to combine what we've learned in the intel world with what we learned in the cyber world, and CyberFob is the marriage of those two. So I can't wait to show it to you. I'm just super excited. We're going on the test drive after this, I promise.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and that also tipped something for me. So I'll do a quick intro with another person that I know that's in the cybersecurity space, and he's trying to find talented engineers and cybersecurity people. So if the tool works, like you say it will, and I know it does because I trust you guys, I think he would be interested in some kind of collaboration with you guys as well. Just because, again, the user interface is probably the most important thing, and when you talk to people. If it's not something that I can't pick up in 10 or 15 minutes of just tooling around on the website after I log in, then for me, I will probably continue to pursue that. But I would say you're probably going to lose 20 to 30% of customers, because if it's not easy, they don't want it, because everybody's used to Android and iPhones and things that I can just swipe, push, punch, whatever, and the results are there. So I think having a platform that is easily accessible and uses good data is a great thing. Man,
we've a great point, by the way, on data, what you just said. I'll talk about Jonah, one of our engineers. I had initially run the project, and I developed the platform just to see what, a proof of concept, and I pitched it to English first. It was this private project. We were keeping it a secret internally, and then she's like, let's show it to Jonah, one of our engineers. And the first thing he said was, we need to have our own data collection mechanism. So we were using APIs and trying to connect them to the platform. And we said, no, we're going to basically get really good at collection of open source stuff. And that had a huge impact. The quality of the data had a huge impact on the experience.
Yeah. And I will tell you, that is a very, very tricky topic, because a lot of people don't understand what OSINT truly is, right? Yeah. So people just think it's just all the information that's out there. No, there's specific things that you are looking for. There's keywords, there's key interactions in that language that make it more important, and I think it's a nuance, but hey, look, if I look at social media for my area, I can find a whole bunch of different Facebook posts of the same incident. So there's probably some commonalities of people talking about that, or, people complaining on Yelp, or whatever it is, whatever the source of the data is. There's probably some truth somewhere in the middle, and an analyst trying to parse through all that data to find what ground truth is a lot more difficult, particularly in the OSINT arena, because there's so many inputs, right? Because if I look at all the social media users, I think there's 75 million dudes on Twitter. Now, how many of those are bots? We don't know, but when you look at even with the change in the Twitter algorithm, there's more people coming on, there's people that are dropping off, and those are all data points. So if I'm looking for a specific topic, I can have somebody that just reposts something just because they like the picture, that doesn't necessarily mean that person is attached to the cause. And so it makes it a lot more interesting to do that. And I like aggregators because they're helpful, but you also have to take them with a grain of salt when it comes to being able to do intel work in support of the government, because there's always that extra layer of information, or hey, look, this is what I'm seeing. Here's the sentiment that I'm seeing. Let me go talk to the guys in the back that have the technical collection piece and see if it marries up with what they're doing. And it goes back to way back in the beginning of the discussion when we were talking about cross-domain solutions, right? So cross-domain solutions have always been a pain in the butt. And, I know guys that do data center management, and they're like, yeah, I don't need a TSSCI clearance because I see all the data, And that's a scary thing to think about, but I can do that from my home computer. All I have to do is search enough topics in the right areas, and I can build a stack of non-classified documents that are now classified because I've basically pieced methodology, locations, people into one location. And now with all that information aggregated together, then that becomes something very, very powerful. So I think you have to consider that as you're dealing with data. And I know that you guys are taking those precautions, but for the general audience that likes to search stuff on the YouTubes and the interwebs, like you can literally build you could build a secret or highly classified document through those interactions.
Yeah.
But we've been going pretty strong for about 40 minutes, man. You guys are so easy to talk to. It's like because you guys are friends of the program and you're friends of DefTech. But we really appreciate you guys coming on. This has been a great opportunity for me to catch up. Like I'm very, very interested in Shannon and CyberFob. Congratulations with the partnership with BlueStack. I'm really glad to hear that you guys have landed some more strategic partnerships because this time next year you will probably have 2 or 3 more because I think that you guys are doing it right and you're building it out. But this has been awesome for me. I love catching up with people, particularly those that kind of started with us. A couple phone calls. Next thing you know, your company is growing in a way that we couldn't have anticipated. I couldn't have. I hope that it's. I know it's what you guys wanted, but sometimes it feels like I don't know if we're going to get there. And now that you're on your way, it's very, very awesome to see. But I will close this thing out. So for Michael in English from Cymantix, I'm Rob Robinson with the Defense Technology Transition Office, or DefTech. And we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Defense Technology Talks, hosted by the North Carolina Defense Technology Transition Office, or DefTech. The full version of this presentation has been uploaded to our Mobilize platform. Mobilize is another free service that we provide to access more national security business and collaboration opportunities. You can also sign up for more information at deftech.nc.gov. Join us again soon for our next podcast coming to a platform near you.